Moving on to Uranus. Uranus was conjunct the recent Aries new moon, and that was conjunct to Argent Suri, remember from last month. Uranus finishing up about 7-ish years in Aries, and it will dip back during its retro period this coming year. Let's see. It will station retro in early August, then dip back into Aries early November through early March 2019. So November 2018 through March 2019. But it's just going into Taurus on May 15th for the first time, essentially in most of our lifetimes. So Uranus in Aries was about individuating by feeling burrs under your saddle, this Aries feeling of, wait a minute, something's wrong, this physical reaction to toxicity or to conflict or something like that. The need to clear yourself, clear the decks of toxicity or things that don't work for you, things that seem to threaten you in some way. That's an Aries way of understanding how planet in Aries can work. But first you have to be willing to be bold, right? Which means overcoming boredom, ennui, emotional, intellectual stasis, resistance to change for fear of inciting conflict, and then having to deal with conflict. So Uranus in Aries was like, I need to say yes and no and eliminate what doesn't work for me. But you had to be willing to be bold. Now in Taurus, it's different. It's still the need to individuate and free yourself, break free from situations that constrict you. But it's about taking steps to live according to your own values. Now, one thing that I like to talk about with Taurus and second house Venus, the values idea, is that it's often a process of elimination where you, in contrast to others' value systems, you realize what yours are. Like I've used this joke recently where you make this new friend and you're hanging out and you're having a good time, and the friend's like, okay, I'll call you Tuesday and we'll hang out. Tuesday, she calls you and says, hey, I have some spray paint, let's go vandalize this building. And you're like, what the fuck, that's not what I'm doing. Like you might realize your values are different from others when they assert their values, or they try to help you, invite you to participate in something that doesn't work for you. So Uranus and Taurus is about taking steps to live according to your own values, freeing yourself essentially from the value systems of others, from the expectations of others that do not suit your values, from the demands others make on you. So in Uranus and Aries, you might have been a little having friction and responses and knee-jerk reactions and wanting to refuse certain things. In Taurus, it needs to come from an inner orientation to security within your own values. And that means living, like being clear. Okay, so like I said with the Aries thing, at first you have to be willing to be bold and courageous. In Taurus, you have to be willing to be clear that what matters to you matters. That means overcoming a willingness to be bored or be accepted by others and feel safe because of what they're doing and what they think you should be doing. And it also means getting over perceptions that you can't be trusted to make your own decisions and run your life. I think about this all the time because my son's in the second house in Taurus, my girlfriend's North Node's in the second house. So we have these conversations about, sometimes we, her multiple life conditioning with Pluto and the South Node in the 8th house, is obviously in the opposite house of what I have to do to be sane. So the second house perspective always requires going at your own speed. It doesn't matter what somebody else is doing. You do what you have to do. So, the contrast with the 8th house is we might feel pulled with somebody. We might feel so connected or entwined with somebody we're actually entangled. But the Taurus energy of this and the second house is about being clear what works for you. Now, you know that because if you have a sense of peace and inner security, that you have, you're able to relax. And that requires lining things up in the right way, living according to your own value system. So you have to get over perceptions to do this Uranus and Taurus well, that you shouldn't make your own decisions. So how can I free myself? You might at first, and this is the key point here, you might at first find that you're involved with a lot of frustration, or you're having anger, frustration, you feel like you can't free yourself or something. That's only a perception because part of you is afraid to branch out on your own. Or if I live according to my own values, will I alienate others? So you just went through, I think, 4 years of transiting Uranus, conjunct transiting Eris. And Eris is about, I talked about that for years. Some of you weren't around for that so much. But the Uranus and Aries thing is, I feel this impulse to free myself. But the Eris and Aries is, but I know if I do that, I'm going to trigger your insecurities. So I'm insecure about freeing myself because I'm afraid of what you'll do next. Will you blame me because you feel small, because I'm, so to speak, leaving you behind, especially with Uranus, individuation, freeing the self, becoming a better you, tapping into your own creative genius and trusting it? You might, so you went through years of seeing the cost of not freeing yourself because you're afraid of other people's insecurity. So now Uranus has moved away from Eris and it's in Taurus. The only thing that matters is what matters to you and how you have to live your life. That doesn't mean you need to be isolated or solipsistic or discounting everybody or critical of their values, but you must begin every day and all of your relationships and behaviors and choices from an inner stance of clarity that what matters to you matters. That's how with Uranus and Taurus for about 7 years, you're going to navigate freeing yourself from what constricts you, your values. Now, your values are different than other people's values. Like I said, you don't need to be critical of everybody else's, but you may find that in the beginning you are, or you may find that you are, which indicates that you're in the beginning of a process of defining or admitting or uncovering and discerning and articulating your values. So let's say that you might not say, this guy saying, what are your values? You might not be able to answer me, but you might be very irritated by the way somebody else does something or the reason he or she does it, the way somebody lives his or her life, the way they eat, the way they deal with their family and their relationships, the way they deal with their pets or whatever. How they deal with things reflects their values. So you might find, friction because you're judging that. Realize that, don't shame yourself for judging it. Realize what's happening is you are getting a little electrical impulse within you that is not my values. So you must return to an inner reflective process to discern, articulate, and assert what your values are. And because it's Taurus again, the speed matters. Take your time to line things up very intentionally and very cogently. Okay, so that is the Taurus deal. Like I said, the conjunction to Eris is done. And like I said, it will station retro in early August, then dip back from early November through early March 2019. It'll be in Pisces again. I will, of course, talk about that during those months and how what you're doing, Taurus to Aries. And I was thinking of the Chiron thing again. But when you're in that Taurus groove and what it's like when it dips back into Aries, I will cover that in a future month. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Neptune. It's in Pisces now, of course.